At 2,212 meters below the surface, sunlight has never reached a single grain of dust. The air is still. The walls drip mineral black water into a silence you've never heard. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what lives at the bottom of the deepest cave on Earth, and why it changes how we search for life beyond our planet. This discovery rewrites how we think life survives in absolute darkness and pressure. It forces scientists to rethink the boundary between habitable and uninhabitable worlds. By the end of this video, you will know exactly where Veryovkina Cave is and why depth matters, who mapped and filmed the 2024-25 descent and how they did it, and what the organism found at the bottom implies for life on other planets. Veryovkina Cave sits in the Arabica Massif of the Gagra Range in northwest Georgia at 43 degrees 13'3" and 40 degrees 7' D. The massif rises 1,000 meters above the Black Sea and contains limestone layers laid down 250 million years ago. For decades, explorers measured vertical shafts, counted rope lengths, and argued over what deep really meant for cavers and geologists alike, and every measurement raised a new question in the darkness. The modern push began in 1968, when Soviet speleologists first mapped the entrance systems that feed vertical caves in the massif. Teams from the USSR, then Russia, then Georgia, added 100, 200, 300 meters to known depths over 30 years. The record kept moving. Each new pit ended with a dead end or a sump that stopped progress, leaving surveys incomplete and curiosity unresolved. In 2000, Veryovkina was first explored by the Perovo Speleological Club and recorded at 1,000 meters deep, then 1,350 meters, then 2,160 meters, as new passages were found. International expeditions in 2018 and 2021 added measured sections and bolted new routes, but the bottom remained unobserved and unphotographed, a rumor wrapped in echo until 2024. In July 2024, a multinational team led by the Georgian Speleological Society partnered with the UK-based Cave Research Foundation and Italy's Speleological Institute to launch an expedition called Depthaxis 2024. They brought 14 people, 32 rigs, 18 high-tension ropes, and 9 battery banks. Their objective? Map and film every meter down to the absolute terminal shaft of Veryovkina, using survey-grade LiDAR, pressure-calibrated depth gauges, and specially shielded 8K cameras. The equipment list alone raised a logistical question nobody had solved before. They arrived at Base Camp 3 on August 9, 2024. The plan called for 7-day vertical pushes, nightly data uploads to a satellite uplink, and redundancy for every descent line. Every hour not logged was a potential loss of data in a cave where a single rope abrasion could end an expedition and where the next centimeter below might be the last. On November 3, 2024, lead surveyor Nino Gurumishvili clipped in at 0612 and began the final vertical push. She rappelled through a sequence of 23 pitches, each between 15 and 120 meters, passing narrow chimneys and flooded pools that reduced travel to centimeters at times. Temperatures dropped from 8 degrees Celsius near the entrance to 1.5 degrees Celsius at 1,800 meters. Communications were spotty. At 1,900 meters, her radio dropped out for 14 minutes, and the team had to rely on pre-planned light signals to advance, a silence that raised a new worry for the surface crew. When the team reached 2,050 meters, the passage opened into a vertical shaft the width of a 2-lane road, strewn with stalactites and a black waterfall that shone like oil. They lowered an 8K tethered camera and a LiDAR rig into the unknown, and the feed froze at 2,212 meters, then came back with an image that forced them to breathe louder than at the surface, something alive moving in the pool at the bottom. For half a century, the accepted theory was simple and neat. The lower you go in karst systems, the less likely complex life becomes, because energy inputs drop to zero. The dominant model, taught in geology and biology departments since the 1980s, argued that cave ecosystems below 1,000 meters are limited to microbial mats and chemical biofilms sustained by slow mineral oxidation. Major textbooks cited Robert Palmer's 1991 review and a cluster of microbiology studies from 2005 to 2015 to back this up. The logic was geological and elegant: cut off sunlight/photosynthesis and life simplifies to bacteria feeding on rock. End of story. Field reports from 2000 to 2020 seem to confirm this. Teams visiting deep caves in China, Mexico, and the Caucasus reported only microbial communities and a handful of blind crustaceans above 800 meters. The sample sets were small: 12 cave pools, 7 sediment cores, and 3 rope-scraped swabs. But the conclusion spread quickly through journals and grant committees as if the data were definitive. Then the Veryovkina footage arrived. The tethered camera showed coordinated motion, limbs, and a body plan that did not match known troglodytic crustaceans. Optical spectrometry from the team suggested chitinous reflections, not slime. The argument that depth equaled simplicity faced direct observable contradiction, and the old model began to strain. Pascalic, mid-retention hook. What if the deepest caves are not sinks of life but archives, places where evolution writes alternate survival strategies we have never considered? The footage left a single question: how could complex macroscopic life sustain itself at 2,212 meters, with no sunlight and near freezing water? In January 2025, samples returned to the University of Tartu's Molecular Ecology Lab were sequenced. Lead author Dr. Kurtu Lep published the first preprint on January 18, 2025. The genome revealed a multicellular arthropod-like organism, 4.8 centimeters long, with jointed appendages and sensory setae adapted to detect minute water currents. Its mitochondrial DNA diverged from known cave amphipods by 16.3%, a genetic gap suggesting at least 1.2 million years of isolated evolution. The lab labeled it provisionally as Pentacryptis variovkinensis, and the genus name alone hinted at evolutionary separation that nobody had expected. The organism's digestive enzymes included novel sulfate-reducing pathways, identified by enzyme assays run at the Max Planck Institute for Marine Microbiology on February 5, 2025. These pathways allow the animal to extract energy from dissolved minerals and sulfur compounds in the pool at the base of the shaft. The mechanism is chemical, not photosynthetic, and it opens a new avenue for how complex bodies might be sustained in perpetual dark. Camera logs and probe readings documented a micro-ecosystem at 2,012 meters, a 3.2-meter wide pool, 0.9 meters deep, with dissolved sulfide concentration at 2.4 millimoles per liter and a stable temperature of 1.5 degrees Celsius. Microbial mats on the rocks showed chemosynthetic bacteria of the genera Thiobacillus and Veggiatoa forming a loose web. Carbon isotope analysis dated the organic carbon in the mats to turnover rates of 6 to 10 years, not centuries, meaning energy flow was active and relatively rapid compared with other deep cave systems. Dr. Anna Popov of the Georgian Speleological Society estimated population density at 120 individuals per square meter in the pool's perimeter in March 2025, based on video transects. That density implies a food web with predators, grazers, and decomposers, a trophic structure similar to shallow aquatic systems but driven entirely by geochemistry. The environment looked more like a miniature deep-sea vent community lifted into a mountain, and the implication forced ecologists to question long-held depth thresholds. When the Max Planck team modeled energy budgets, they found that chemosynthetic inputs from sulfide oxidation produced enough fixed carbon to support a complex food web with organisms up to 5 centimeters and larger. Published in Nature Ecology on April 2, 2025, the paper argued that where geology supplies reduced compounds, sulfides, methane, iron, multicellular life can not only persist but diversify, even under pressure and cold. This final revelation links to a universal question. If geological energy alone can sustain complex ecosystems deep underground on Earth, then similar processes could support life below the surface of Mars, Europa, or Enceladus, where sunlight never reaches and pressures vary but chemistry persists. The discovery in Veryovkina implies that habitability maps for other worlds should include subterranean pockets and fracture systems as primary search targets, a shift that changes mission planning, resource allocation, and what you imagine when you think of life beyond Earth. The consequences are human. The finding forces us to rethink how fragile our assumptions are about where life can arise and survive, and it forces us to imagine life existing in places we once considered dead. A new multicellular organism, Pentacryptis variovkinensis, was discovered living at 2,212 meters in Veryovkina Cave, sustained by chemosynthetic webs powered by sulfide-rich geology. Could similar isolated pockets of chemosynthetically driven ecosystems exist beneath the surfaces of Mars or icy moons, hidden from every probe we've sent so far? Share your theory in the comments. Click the next video on your screen for another discovery that will leave you questioning everything.